we're a global first responder to war, disaster, disease. We're in places like Yemen, Somalia, Ukraine, where the war is right now. We also respond to natural disasters. So whether it's a hurricane in Puerto Rico or an earthquake in Nepal, International Medical Corps is there. We also, of course, because we're a health organization, respond to disease outbreaks. So we've been really busy responding to the COVID pandemic across the world, ensuring that people have access to health services, no matter where they are, no matter how they've been affected by what's happened to them. So we were founded back when the Soviet Union had invaded Afghanistan. And for those of you who remember, I mean, it was quite a brutal conflict, and there were millions of Afghans that had been forced to flee their home. 6 million people on the border of Pakistan. And our founder, Dr. Bob Simon, who's an emergency room physician, under his own power and his own steam, went over to see if he could help. And he looked around and he thought, we can't bring in enough doctors and nurses to solve this problem and provide healthcare to all of these people in need. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start a training program. I'm going to identify lay people who may not have any background in health services, and train them to be medics. And so he put them through an intensive 9-month training program, gave them medicines and supplies, and sent them back into Afghanistan, into their home villages to provide services. At the end of 3 years, he had trained more than 500 medics. They were helping 50,000 people a month. And it really was the beginning of the organization. And so while we respond to these disasters and we provide life-saving healthcare, we also provide training at the local community level so that people have the ability to help themselves. I mean, that's what they want to do when they've been impacted by, such an incredible event like a natural disaster or a war. They just want to pick up the pieces of their lives and begin to put them back together. And so what International Medical Corps does is gives them the resources, the knowledge, the skills that they need to do that. Well, I'd say that it's not only our focus on responding, right, to people who are in need, but it's about the training piece of what we do and who we are. And so a lot of people think that in the midst of war or in the immediate aftermath of a disaster, you can't provide training. You can't take the time out to do that. But we have found that that's a more effective way to deliver assistance, is to give people, like I said, the knowledge, the skills, the resources, whether they be financial or otherwise, to begin to make a difference in their own community. And so that's what we're all about. So we have a long history in Ukraine. It started in 1999, but we've been there continuously since 2014, when Russia originally annexed Crimea. And so we rapidly scaled up our efforts there. We were predominantly working in the southeastern part of the country. And so our small staff of about 30, our home base was in Mariupol, where, you've seen the news reports from Mariupol. It's been completely destroyed. So we quickly moved our teams from Mariupol to Kyiv and then Lviv to then begin to figure out how we could provide assistance. So we are thinking about it in terms of the formerly occupied areas up around Kyiv and the northeastern part of the country. There's tremendous devastation. And so International Medical Corps is working with local health authorities and the Ministry of Health to begin to rebuild right now. So in Kyiv and Kharkiv and those places where a lot of the health facilities have been deliberately targeted, civilian infrastructure has been deliberately targeted. So, we need to begin the rebuilding process there as soon as possible. But then on the front lines, there are direct services that are needed. The doctors and nurses and everybody that are on the front lines of the conflict, they need support. They need medicine, supplies, all of those kinds of things. And so International Medical Corps is really focused on delivering that. But then, of course, in partnership, we're also providing mental health and protection services. So it's been an incredibly traumatic event in that country. The entire country region, really. I mean, more than 6 million people have left the country, 5 million have been kind of displaced within the country. I mean, there is significant need for mental health support and protection of vulnerable women, children, elderly people. A really interesting thing about the Ukraine emergency is that the population of Ukraine is older, and so there is a particular vulnerable piece of that community or that nation that's older, less able to take care of themselves, and really need a lot of support. And so International Medical Corps is trying to fill that gap. As I mentioned, more than 6 million people have crossed a border. So 3 million of them are in Poland and then in the surrounding area. So those neighboring countries certainly need support to deal with the influx of people, the pressure on their health system, on their schools, on their social services. But in addition, both Russia and Ukraine are global food producers, and the impact of the war has dramatically impacted the countries that import their grain, fertilizer, etc. So we are very concerned about the long-term impact of the war on countries that rely on them for their food sources. So places throughout sub-Saharan Africa are already experiencing shortage. Yemen imported a lot from both Russia and Ukraine. Already it's difficult to get food there. So we're very concerned about the impact of the war on food security across Africa and the Middle East. Well, I mean, the Gamers Without Borders tournament is phenomenal. I mean, the purpose of it is to raise awareness about all these different charity partners. And I think that that's amazing. And I think that that's one of the things that the gamers can do is use their platform to raise awareness about these issues. I mean, like you said, you may not be aware of the impact of the war on the rest of the world, but it's important to educate yourselves and then share with your broad community. I mean, as gamers, like you said, the incredible reach that you have is to raise awareness about these issues. And I think, as a global community, we have to take care of each other. And gamers that are kind of plugged into that and to aware of that and raising awareness and using their gaming platform for good, I think is phenomenal. And I just encourage, to continue that. We've been honored to be partnering with Gamers Without Borders for the last 2 years. It's just amazing. And I think any charity that the gamers pick is a worthwhile, but with International Medical Corps, that you're contributing to saving lives.